guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be reacting to
Why Europe is the world's fastest warming continent.
The frequency and intensity of extreme heat events is increasing in Europe. By 2050, about half the European population may be exposed to high or very high risk of heat stress during summer.
I'm not handling
the
it well.
Europeans are going to enjoy AC now.
Well,
Because I always feel like when Europeans come to the US, they say, oh my god, AC is everywhere.
so that's why it's like a double whammy. It's because not only Europe is getting hotter, but Europe doesn't really have ACs like that. So like if the States got hotter, would suck, but the only thing that would get affected is our electricity bill.
Yeah, you feel more.
Yeah, in Europe, people are actually suffering because they don't have ACs and they might not be able to afford ACs because ACs are not cheap.
And also, there's a lot of walking around. Not everyone's on a car.
Right, that people don't have the cars like they do here.
Yeah. And then also, like, people on the bus,
Yeah,
trains
because
together.
the cars. Well, trains, I guess if it's underground, maybe a little cooler, like subway, you know. But yeah,
I know
buses.
when it's hot, I don't want people on top of me.
Yeah, and you know, people like in Europe, as you said, walking more, they don't have cars as much. Biking, well, here, you know, at least you get in the car, AC. Out of the car, walk to the store, AC, or office, home, AC. So the heat wouldn't affect Americans as much, but Europeans, I think that's even worse.
Really hot, too hot, and it just wears you out.
Welcome to the day, a day that was the hottest of the year here in Germany, peaking at nearly 40 degrees Celsius in some places. Europe's been baking under unusually high temperatures for the time of year.
You look hot. He has his suit more out and open.
He's hot.
He's
In
hot.
France, say 2 people have died of heat-related illnesses and hundreds have been hospitalized. In Spain, authorities said a wildfire broke out during a 4th day of stifling temperatures, sending out a huge cloud of ash and smoke. 2 farmers died, apparently trying to flee the blaze. Attractions across the continent, including the Eiffel Tower in Paris, had to be closed because of the heat. Relief, however, is in sight, but long-term temperatures are trending upwards. The EU's climate change service says Europe is now the fastest warming continent.
So you think you know Wix?
Why?
Do you really? First up, we've got
I
shape
hope this
video masks.
video
You can use different shapes.
actually answers the why and not just talks about it, that okay it is, but why. Because like I don't think Europe produces the most CO2 or whatever to, you know, affect the earth, but why are they the most warming?
As the church bells ring in Seville, the Spanish authorities are sounding the alarm, a heatwave warning. It's morning here and already 31 degrees Celsius. Temperatures could rise to 43 degrees during the day. We have to be constantly looking for shade, the air conditioning in the car, whoever has it, and look, we wear a bracelet that beeps for the heat. It's terrible for me. I mean, I don't sleep well, insomnia, and then I get heat stroke. I stop eating and I can't concentrate. And it's not only Spain. Across Europe, people are struggling to stay cool as extreme temperatures hit in regions from north to south. For scientists, this comes as no surprise. They've been warning for years that burning fossil fuels is causing global warming, making heat waves more likely and more severe. What is exceptional for Europe? The continent is warming twice as fast as the global.
No, this might be like, it might get people to move more north, like in Norway's, the Swedens, the Finlands of the world. Because, well, if you know, if it's Spain is killing, everybody wanted to go to Spain because it was the nice weather, but guess what? The Spanish weather might be the weather in Lithuania in the next 10 years, so my people might move to Lithuania for the weather.
When your family's in Spain, do they complain about the heat?
They don't go in the summer. Yeah, they don't. It's too hot for them.
Global average. Scientists from the Copernicus Climate Observatory program think this is linked to various factors. Like Europe's proximity to the Arctic, the more ice that melts there, the fewer sun rays are sent back into space. The result, the region heats up even more. Another factor is Europe's shrinking rivers and lakes caused by severe droughts in recent years. Since land warms up faster than water, it gets even warmer in summer. And there might be a contribution of aerosol reduction too.
We clean our air, our industrial processes and transport are cleaner than before, and this clean the atmosphere. So there is a positive trend in terms of radiation in Europe. So it's more sunshine hours every year. So all this combined can play a role.
Then there is a super fast warming of the Mediterranean Sea.
Because I would say it's getting warmer here as well than it used to, but we don't.
Really?
I feel like it. I feel like when I first came here, the summers weren't like this unbearable. I feel like now summers are ridiculous.
The only thing I can really tell you is that the winters is not as cool.
Yeah, winters are harder. Like overall, it's getting warm. Like you can feel it, but for us, like it's not like unbearable because we don't really go outside like that. We don't have no business outside. So I feel like it's the worst for people that work
No,
outside,
when we do
construction
go
workers.
outside, it's not like bad at all.
Yeah, but I'm saying like we don't go, but like we don't sit in the sun. We don't work like labor jobs outside. I feel like for the construction workers, for road workers, for them it's really like they're really affected by it. But for people that office workers or whatever, it's it's not like that big of a deal.
which is contributing to heat waves and more extreme droughts in the south.
But yeah, I'm not saying we are experiencing anything what Europe is. It's just I think like a tad bit harder than it used
No,
to
it's
be.
because they don't have AC. Of course it feels hot.
No, here,
Oh.
I mean, I'm just a little bit harder than it was like 10, 15
Oh.
years ago. But in Europe, like that, yeah, we definitely not this bad.
The dark red colors on this map show areas that are more than 5 degrees above the seasonal average. Heat, known as the silent killer, is a serious health risk for everyone, but particularly for elderly people, those with illnesses and children. As the hot weather continues, civil authorities keep warning residents. Meanwhile, in Italy, some regions have put restrictions on outdoor work during the peak heat hours.
Brenda Eckwurzel is a leading authority on climate change. She's Senior Director of Scientific Excellence with the Union of Concerned Scientists and joins us from Washington, D.C. Welcome to DW. How concerning is it that Europe's increased temperatures are happening so much earlier in summer?
Right. Because it's not even mid-June yet. Like we're talking about, sorry, not mid-July, we're talking about June.
It's quite concerning. I think it's one of the fingerprints of climate change. For example, looking at the data, March to May in the boreal spring season was the second highest on record, and that was only broken by the highest on record, which happened the prior spring.
So are we seeing a shift in temperatures, or are we seeing an extension of the warm temperatures? Are summers getting longer, or is everything just being shifted forward?
Summers are getting longer, and unfortunately for human health, the heat waves are more severe under climate change at this level of climate change.
Europe is now the world's fastest warming continent. Why is that?
There are a couple of really important physical science reasons. Partly because the Arctic region to the north of Europe is warming several times faster than the global average. Also, the oceans are warming up. And we saw that just recently in the northeastern North Atlantic Sea. Surface temperatures on May 23rd, the peak of a marine heat wave, was the highest since record keeping began in 1979. And combine that with drought conditions and high temperatures, these are preconditions for the heat wave that people are experiencing across many parts of Europe in the recent days and weeks.
Okay, so now we have the EU revealing its climate targets to cut greenhouse gas emissions by 90% by 2024.
But like, so she said the Arctic, like above Europe, is the melting at a faster rate than anywhere else. But why Europe? Why not Arctic next to the States or an Arctic next to like Russia? Why? Because Europe is already, like cutting down emissions and everything. They're very like environment conscious as a continent. I feel like
based on just recycling alone.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a little confused.
I feel like it. So what? It's just interesting. So it's like China or whoever pollutes the most, they affect Europe. Like it just travels to. Is that how it works? I don't know. I don't know because Earth rotates or whatever. I don't know. That's interesting.
Is that going to be enough?
It's really, really important to have severe reduction in emissions of heat-trapping gases. And coal, oil, gas, cement manufacturing, these are really, really important. So 90% is a laudable target, and as fast as possible is what we need.
Okay, but we have at the same time the Trump spending.
To me, though, I don't know.
Look.
How... What?
There's a fly on the guy's shoulder.
Oh no.
That's funny.
Is
Look.
what we need.
Okay,
Oh,
but
no.
we have at the same time.
That's so wild. What can you do? Like he can't just stop. And he's standing still like he's not, and I'm sure he's sensing it. That's crazy.
The Trump spending bill, which is going to deliver a huge
fly
blow
off.
to renewable energy. He has an administration full of climate deniers. How much does it matter that the world's biggest carbon polluter is so out of step with the rest of the world on this issue?
It matters greatly because the United States, if you look at historical cumulative emissions, is the largest contributor to global warming today.
America,
and therefore, the great strides that were taken to...
Oh yeah, I think everyone, they meet up to talk about what they're gonna do for the climate.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some
The
sort
US,
of.
they meet up, go in Europe to like France for the
Yeah,
global
but
convention.
I didn't think America was the largest. I thought it would be like China or something, where there's a lot of like manufacturing going
Because
on.
obviously the impact, they're feeling it first, so they want everyone to be team players.
Interesting.
reduce emissions through spending at the federal government level, energy projects, infrastructure projects that are underway. It looks like these bills that are recently before the Senate and the House in Congress.
It's just so hard, when the government is a bunch of science deniers. It's like, they're like, oh, it's getting warmer, but not because of science, just because whatever.
A lot of them are looking to slow or reverse some of those advances. However, there is a note of hope. A lot of members of Congress want those contracts that are in their districts, which many of them are, in especially rural areas, and many members of Congress. They want the ones that were committed to go forward. So we think that might survive the current round of negotiations.
Okay. Of course, when I mentioned the European targets, that was by 2040 rather than by last year, as I think I said. Every year, we see lives lost because of extreme weather and climate-related events, and the financial costs are huge. Does the lack of urgency to tackle climate change and global warming, does that still surprise you?
It would if I were just wearing my climate scientist hat. And in fact, I was quite surprised by the continued lack of action. However, I have learned through social science and other areas of science history that many people have been deliberately misinformed about the facts. And therefore, we see that the impact.
What do you mean?
Like, people are misinformed, like they're not told the truth about what's going on with the earth and what it has to do in parts of our consumption of goods.
Like here in the States?
In overall.
So you're saying
everyone would say, oh, this is propaganda.
Oh, in that sense.
Yeah, but it's not science. And you have scientists explaining, but the issue is that they make it a political thing. So it now becomes
like everything else.
Yeah, so it's not like a focus on who has the information, who understands it, but more like, oh, they're posed to give a skewed viewpoint to benefit this candidate or to this position.
Yeah. So it's like the whole COVID shot thing all over again.
Impacts of climate change are awakening many people because they see it, they experience it.
It's just
These
a
heat
lack
waves
of, we were taught like a lack to have public trust against those officials.
Severe than they remember as children or that their parents or grandparents experienced. So it's hard to deny the facts that are on the ground. Yet there's also misinformation about the power and momentum of solutions, such as the actions you say Europe is taking to reduce 90% of the emissions. We would like it to be sooner. 2040 is an ambitious target. On the way to 90% reductions, a lot of innovation, a lot of jobs, support for the economy are also going to be benefits of taking action on climate change.
Okay, thank you so much for talking us through that. To Brenda Eckwurzel from the Union of Concerned Scientists. Thank you so much. Well, Carl Friedrich Schleusner is a scientific advisor to climate analytics and an honorary professor at the Humboldt University here in Berlin. Welcome to DW. Should Europe have been better prepared for this heat wave?
Well, this is the science of the climate crisis. And unfortunately, we see that even a world region like Europe that has a high adaptive capacity and generally good foresight and some of the best scientific advice in the world is not prepared for events like this. So you can imagine how the climate extremes are hitting countries around the world at this time of the day.
Yeah, but it may have a high adaptive capacity. You can have all the science you like. But if your politicians, if the people in charge of the money are sitting on their hands, then none of that counts for anything.
Well, First and foremost, we are battling the climate crisis by bringing down emissions on a race to net zero to stop the climate crisis forever further intensifying. So I think that's the first and foremost priority that we need to keep in mind. And then, yes, indeed, we are seeing that the climate crisis is very much upon us. It's not a question of the future, and we are not prepared. We haven't experienced anything like that in that extent and magnitude, even in Europe. And we are seeing that our systems are being pushed to limits, and we really need to step up our game also when it comes to climate adaptation and dealing with those crises.
Let's talk about the stepping up of the game for climate adaptation. Where do you see it being done well?
Do you have a clean driving
The
record?
host is a little confused.
Do you own more than one car?
Like it, no?
Then you are likely paying too much.
It's very tricky to say where it's being done well because societies around the world are being faced with new and different challenges. If you just recall, for example, our neighboring country of here from Germany and Switzerland had a massive landslide in relation to its mountainous environments just a couple of months ago. Other countries are
Yeah, I think that's the one we reacted to. Then that city that's in the valley.
Tropical cyclones, massive flooding, wildfires that we're also now seeing here, massive heat. The climate crisis has many faces and many, many perils, and societies around the world are experiencing unprecedented extremes. And we are all in this together.
So,
42? I don't know, probably like 120 or something.
So, okay, but talk to us about what's going on here in Europe. Where do you look around Europe and say, right?
The host is confused. Look at his face.
They have the right idea. That was a good thing to do. That's good policy.
I think it's very tricky to say what is good policy. I think there are obvious things that we need to do. We need to have cooling rooms. We need to see how we reduce urban heat island effects in cities. We need to know green spaces. We need to look after elderly. We need to identify vulnerable populations and in particular focus on them. But we also need to appreciate the fact that our infrastructure hasn't been built for a climate that we are experiencing today, and that it's going to take us a lot of time and investment in order to adapt. And we are going to see the economic impacts of it, as we've also seen in the clip that you've just shown, how, for example, the building sector's workers' capacity is drastically reduced because of the extreme heat stress. So it is a challenge. It's a challenge that we're all in together. And some countries, in particular those that have more experience with extreme heat waves, for example, like France that had a terrible heat wave in 2003, has slightly better early warning systems and also adaptation systems in place.
Right.
But I wouldn't say anyone in Europe is prepared for what is here and what is yet to come.
Thank you for talking us through that. Karl Friedrich Schleusner from Humboldt University. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So interesting. France already had a heat wave like 20 years ago. So maybe this is not such a new phenomenon then. If it's been happening, I don't know. Interesting.
Sometimes I also wonder if it can be like, since we're so super connected now, we can experience experiences together more strongly.
True, maybe what we called the heat waves back in the day, we just didn't like. It was part of life. It was here for a couple of days. It was hot. It went away.
But now we hear it over there.
Yeah. Now there was no social media. You didn't hear people complaining. You just kind of went about your day. It was hot. You stayed in. Stayed in bed.
You're like, oh yeah, it is hot, and you go on.
Yeah, but when I guess they sensationalize everything now. Although, admittedly, I don't remember having heat 40 degrees plus in Lithuania, but
yeah.
I don't know.
It could be an odd event too. It's just this is tracking.
Yeah, interesting.
Guys, of course, let us know your thoughts. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Join the Discord, and as always, share as much kindness as possible. Bye, guys.